The Whitmore mansion stood like a monument to success. Its white stone walls gleamed under the afternoon sun, each window perfectly framed by silk curtains that cost more than most people earned in a year. The garden stretched endlessly, manicured lawns meeting sculpted hedges in geometric perfection. Everything looked flawless. But beauty often hides the darkest secrets. Inside these walls, Amora moved through the hallways like a ghost. Her black and white uniform was crisp and spotless, her hair pulled back tight, her movements efficient and silent. She had mastered the art of invisibility. That was the first rule of survival in the Whitmore household. Be seen only when needed, be heard never. Her stomach cramped violently as she dusted the grand staircase. 2 days had passed since her last real meal. The scent of breakfast still lingered in the air, bacon and fresh pastries, eggs cooked to perfection. The smell was torture. She paused, pressing her hand against her abdomen, fighting the dizziness that threatened to topple her. Mrs. Whitmore appeared at the top of the stairs, her silk robe flowing behind her like a queen's cape. Her cold eyes fixed on Amora with immediate suspicion. The woman seemed to have a sixth sense for detecting weakness, for sniffing out desperation. "Don't even think about it," Mrs. Whitmore said, her voice sharp as broken glass. She descended the stairs slowly, deliberately, each step calculated to intimidate. "I know that look, Amora. That hungry, pathetic look." Amora's eyes dropped to the floor. "I wasn't. You were." The mistress stopped 3 steps above her, looking down like a judge delivering sentence. "Let me remind you of the rules. This food, everything in this house, belongs to my family. You are paid wages. Use them. Bring your own bread or starve quietly. I will not tolerate servants stealing from my kitchen." The words hit like physical blows. Amora nodded, her throat too tight to speak. She watched Mrs. Whitmore glide away, leaving behind only the faint scent of expensive perfume and the crushing weight of hopelessness. Hours blurred together in a haze of pain and exhaustion. Amora scrubbed floors until her knees ached, polished silverware until she could see her hollow reflection in each spoon. Every task felt monumental. Her body was running on nothing but willpower, and even that was fading fast. She climbed the stairs to collect laundry, gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. The house spun around her. Halfway up, she had to stop, closing her eyes and breathing deeply, fighting the nausea that rose in her throat. She couldn't collapse. She couldn't show weakness. One sign of inability to work, and she would be replaced. Her son's face flashed through her mind. Sweet little Emmanuel, only 7 years old, lying in a hospital bed 300 miles away. Malaria had ravaged his small body for weeks. Every penny she earned went straight to his treatment, to keeping him alive. The doctors said he was improving, but he needed more time, more medicine, more money. "I'm doing this for you, baby," she whispered to herself, forcing her legs to move again. "Mama's going to save you." By mid-afternoon, the hunger had evolved into something else entirely. It wasn't just an empty feeling anymore. It was a living thing inside her, clawing at her insides, screaming for relief. Her hands trembled uncontrollably as she folded sheets. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. She stumbled toward the back door, desperate for air, for space, for anything to stop the room from spinning. The garden beckoned, peaceful and quiet. No one was out there. She could breathe. She could think. But when she stepped onto the lawn, her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the grass, tears streaming down her face before she could stop them. The physical pain was unbearable, but worse was the shame. How had she ended up here? On her knees in a stranger's garden, so desperate she could barely think straight? Her fingers dug into the soil. The grass beneath her was so green, so alive. Without fully realizing what she was doing, driven by pure animal desperation, Amora pulled up a handful and brought it to her mouth. The grass was bitter and wrong, nothing like food should taste. But Amora chewed anyway, sobbing as she swallowed, immediately grabbing another handful. Tears mixed with dote on her face. She knew how pathetic she looked, how broken she had become, but the hunger overrode every other instinct. "Why?" she cried to the empty sky. "God, why am I suffering like this?" The grass cut her tongue, scraped her throat going down. But she continued, driven by a desperation that transcended logic or dignity. She had become exactly what Mrs. Whitmore accused her of being, an animal reduced to the most basic survival instinct. She didn't hear the footsteps on the stone path, didn't notice the shadow that fell across her hunched form. What the hell is this? The voice struck like thunder. Amora's head snapped up, grass still hanging from her lips. Standing before her was Mr. Whitmore himself, the billionaire, the man whose name was on buildings across the city. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. His shoes reflected the sunlight like mirrors. But his face was twisted in absolute horror. Amora. He said her name like a question, like he wasn't sure the creature before him was human. What are you doing? She scrambled to her knees, spitting out grass, her hands shaking violently. Words failed her completely. What could she possibly say? How could she explain this nightmare? He stepped closer, his shock transforming into something else. Anger maybe, or confusion, or disgust. Are you insane? Why are you eating grass like some kind of animal? The shame burned hotter than the hunger. She couldn't meet his eyes, couldn't lift her head. Sir, I'm so sorry. Sorry. His voice rose, echoing across the perfect garden. Sorry doesn't explain this. Answer me, right now. What is happening? Her mind raced, panic flooding every thought. If she told the truth, Mrs. Whitmore would fire her. She would lose everything. Emmanuel would die because his mother couldn't keep her mouth shut. But if she said nothing, this man would think she was crazy, and she would still lose her job. I can't, she whispered, the words barely audible. You can't what? He loomed over her now, his expensive shoes inches from her dote-stained knees. Speak to me. But Amora remained silent, trapped between two impossible choices, grass still clinging to her trembling lips. Mr. Whitmore's jaw clenched so hard Amora could hear his teeth grinding. His hands balled into fists at his sides, trembling with barely contained rage. Not at her, she realized. At the situation. At the mystery she refused to explain. Amora. His voice dropped dangerously low. I don't want excuses or apologies. I want the truth. Now, why were you on your knees eating grass in my garden? Before she could respond, the sliding glass door opened with a sharp crack. Mrs. Whitmore stepped onto the patio, her silk robe flowing dramatically, a porcelain coffee cup balanced perfectly in her manicured hand. Her expression was one of mild annoyance, as if she had been interrupted from something important. What's all this shouting about? She asked coolly, her eyes sweeping over the scene with calculated disinterest. Mr. Whitmore spun to face his wife. When he spoke, his voice shook with barely suppressed fury. Explain to me why I just found our maid eating grass like an animal. Mrs. Whitmore sipped her coffee slowly, deliberately. Because she's a servant, and servants don't eat what belongs to us. The words hung in the air like poison. Mr. Whitmore's face went pale, then flush red. What did you just say? You heard me. She walked closer, gesturing dismissively with her free hand. I established rules when we hired the staff. They are not permitted to touch our food. Not leftovers, not scraps, nothing. They receive wages. If they are too foolish to bring their own meals, that's their problem, not mine. Amora kept her head down, hot tears splashing onto the grass. Each word from Mrs. Whitmore's mouth felt like a knife twisting deeper into her chest. The shame was suffocating. You've been forbidding them to eat. Mr. Whitmore's voice cracked. In my house? Under my roof? Mrs. Whitmore rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic. They are paid fairly. If they can't manage their own meals, that's not my concern. I won't have servants rummaging through my refrigerator like rats. This household has standards. Standards? The word exploded from him. You call starving people standards. She was so desperate she was eating grass from the ground, and you knew this was happening. I kept order while you were busy building your empire, she shot back coldly. Someone has to maintain discipline. If she's hungry, that's her own failure to plan. Something broke inside Mr. Whitmore. He turned to Amora, his voice suddenly soft, desperate. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you come to me? Amora's sobs came harder now, her whole body shaking. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because, so, She said if I complained, I would be fired immediately, and I send every penny home to my village. My son, Emmanuel, is only 7. He has malaria. The doctors say he needs months of treatment, expensive medicine. If I lose this job, sir, if I lose these wages—" Her voice shattered completely. "He won't survive." The words hit Mr. Whitmore like a physical blow. He actually staggered backward, his hand clutching his chest. His maid wasn't crazy. She wasn't weak or lazy or failing to plan. She was a mother slowly starving herself to death to save her child, suffering in silence while food was thrown into trash bins just meters away from where she worked. He turned to his wife, and when he spoke, his voice was raw with pain and rage. "Do you understand what you've done? She's been starving under our roof while you threw away leftovers. A mother is dying slowly so her son can live, and you called her a rat. You called maintaining basic human decency a lack of standards." Mrs. Whitmore's expression flickered, but she lifted her chin defiantly. "She's just a maid. They come and go. Don't turn this into some melodrama." "Enough!" His roar echoed across the entire garden, sending birds scattering from nearby trees. "Don't speak another word. I don't recognize a woman standing before me. Heartless, cruel, inhuman." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, deliberately, the billionaire did something he hadn't done in decades. He knelt down on the grass beside Amara, lowering himself to her level. His expensive suit touched the date. His polished shoes pressed into the soil. "Forgive me," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Please, forgive me for not seeing, for not knowing, for being so blind to the suffering in my own home." Amora's tears fell harder, but now they were mixed with disbelief. The great Mr. Whitmore, kneeling beside her in the date, his own eyes filled with tears. His vast empire, his billions, his power, none of it mattered in this moment. What broke him wasn't a business failure or a market crash. It was the sight of a loyal woman forced to eat grass while his wife sipped imported coffee. "I swear to you," he said, his voice trembling but absolutely certain, "this ends today. You will never go hungry again. Not while I draw breath. Your son will get every treatment he needs. You will eat at my table. And you," he glanced back at his wife with cold finality, "will be moving out by tomorrow morning." The sun set slowly over the Whitmore mansion, casting long shadows across the perfect lawn. And there, in the fading light, the mighty billionaire wept, not from loss of money or status, but from the unbearable weight of cruelty that had thrived in his own home while he remained blind to it. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones hiding in plain sight, waiting for a single moment of awareness to shatter everything we thought we knew.